Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville for Tuesday, November 10th, 2015, and we'll start with roll call.
Barbara Doss.
Here.
Barb Stockhausen.
Here.
Tom Null.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Amy Seaboth Wilson. Here. And Mike Den.
Here.
I just will make a general announcement that at our last council meeting, we did say that we would be voting tonight on the developers agreement for the library block. That will not happen this evening. After we made that announcement, we discovered that the developer and the financing entities still need to do a little work on their part, and nothing that will affect the city, but we will wait until they finalize their language before we talk about the developers agreement. We hope to do that at our next meeting here in November. If you are here to speak to that issue, you're certainly welcome to come up during citizens' comments, observations, and petitions time, or please come back on the 24th. First item is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to the routine nature of previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer separate discussion and action. A is council minutes from October 20th and October 26th, our special meeting, and also our October 27th regular meeting. B is payment of bills. C is a finance report for October. D is appointments to boards and commissions, and the only appointment this evening is Kevin Wonderland to the Airport Commission. And the other thing in the packet is licenses, one-year operator license to sell or serve alcohol. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar. Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Doss.
Yes.
Stockhausen.
Yes.
Null.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson.
Yes.
Den.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I have no requests right now under citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. If you are here to speak on an item that's on our agenda, please plan to do so at that time. But we do have sheets that we ask you to fill out in the back of the room. If you have a question, Jeremy, you can ask the city clerk if you have a question about how to fill it out, or. Under citizens' comment? Okay. We're gonna wait a minute. We have someone who's filling out an application. Okay. So we'll go on to the reports?
Yes.
All right, so in our packet, we have Board Commission Committee minutes, Zoning Board of Appeals, Den,
Nothing to add.
Redevelopment Authority Board, Dawes,
Nothing to add.
Platteville Historic Preservation Commission, that would be me, and I have nothing to add. Other reports include the Airport Financial Report for October, the Water and Sewer Financial Report for October, City Attorney Itemized Statement for October, and Department Progress Reports. Any questions or comments on any of those?
Yes, I have couple questions on department progress reports. First one is for the city manager. And what is the status of this AB 350 to provide full funding for municipal services to cities which have universities.
AB 350 on the municipal services bill was unanimously voted out of committee, but it hasn't moved forward from that point.
Out of committee, it means it goes to where? The Assembly and the Senate?
You know, you're probably more familiar with the Wisconsin legislative process than I am, but I can follow up to see what the next scheduled action
It
would
would be
be.
an assembly bill, so it would first go to the assembly, because
Or
it's
assembly.
AB.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my next question is, I suppose I should know the answer. What is a city activity directory?
The city activities directory is published twice yearly, and it contains some general city information as well as the recreation programming for the upcoming 6 months.
Okay. And I've talked to the city attorney already and to community planning development, so I'm down to the library director. And since there's nobody here, I'll ask Marilyn Gottschalk. What does PRA stand for as far as the company? Is that a company that's doing the design of the library?
It's the architecture firm.
Pardon?
Puckett Racich Architects, that's the firm that's doing the design.
Okay. My next question is, we had a presentation by the city manager and it showed open ceilings. Is this the finalized appearance of the library? Open ceilings? Seeing all the girders and so forth?
I don't know that anyone is here from the architectural firm, but my understanding is, yes, Ken, that is the plan. Other libraries recently built have used that same type of ceiling.
Okay. Well, I used to be in a classroom that had girders in it and I didn't appreciate it, so I believe that's all I have for questions. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Well, one comment, I guess. I saw the population came in, 12,788. Is that it?
Yes.
Is that higher or lower than what it was?
Higher.
I don't remember the last official number. What was the last official number?
12,433.
Okay, we got up by 300 people. Congratulations, Platteville.
355, yeah.
That's good.
Yes, it is.
Thanks.
All right, first action item is Resolution 1523, expanding the Platteville Housing Authority jurisdiction.
This item has been on the agenda for the last couple meetings, and at the last meeting, you had asked that a resolution be drawn up, expanding the Platteville Housing Authority jurisdiction to include the entire 53818 zip code within Grant County.
And so it's necessary to formally pass a resolution.
Yes, because right now, they only have jurisdiction within the city of Platteville.
Okay. We do have one individual, Marilyn Gottschalk, who said she would like to register in favor of approving the resolution. Does anybody have any questions? We discussed this at the last meeting. Otherwise, a motion would be
I
in
move
order.
to adopt the resolution expanding the Platteville Housing Authority jurisdiction to include the entire 53818 zip code within Grant County.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote.
Doss?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Nall?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson?
Yes.
Den?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is the 2016-2018 city assessing proposals. Dwayne?
The city received two proposals. Both firms are assessed many municipalities throughout the state. Staff recommends that the city council approve the bid to engage the services of Accurate Appraisal LLC for the 2016 to 2018 calendar years at the fee of $15,000 per year.
Questions?
My first question is, who is staff?
I talked to the city manager about it. We discussed it.
You, city manager?
I've also checked with other ones that work with them. Joe Carroll and Jan Martin have both worked with the current, this is our current assessor, and no one's had any problems. They all spoke favorably.
And Did you have any particular criteria in mind to compare the two firms?
Well, there was, we did have a list of items to check off, and they were there, they were responsible for, they acknowledged everything that they do there, so.
I mean, the second firm has a lot more cities, villages, and towns compared to the one that we've been using. So I was wondering about that difference.
Right, and they both do a good job. I mean, the second firm's price is over twice as high, so this 15,000 is pretty close to what we budgeted for next year.
Well, I can only give my personal observation. They came to our place one time and they measured up a building and they were 400 square feet off. So I hope they're doing better.
With the 15,000, that also includes 4 hours of office in Platteville area too, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Per month.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
The assessors.
Firm that we presently use.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue with the current assessing firm
For 3 years?
for 3 years for $15,000 a year.
With
16,
accurate
17,
appraisal.
18.
Is there an escalator clause built in? I guess you're
Oh,
waiting
those
for
are the
a
rates,
second. I'll second.
15,000 per year, yes.
All right, we have a motion and
I
a
second.
second. And we'll vote.
Das,
Yes.
Stackhausen,
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Nichols,
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next item is consideration regarding financing in the amount of $2,725,000 for community development projects in tax increment District Number 7. Karen, if you'd like to introduce our,
Sure. Actually, our presenter today is Philip Cosson, who's with the firm Ellers. And you might remember that Ellers did some of the initial work for us with respect to the library project in terms of our TID analysis and the pro forma review. And so we asked them to continue on and assist us with financing options for both the $2 million for the library block as well as about $625,000 for the acquisition of the Pioneer Ford site.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Phil Cosson with Ellers, and it's nice to be with you tonight. I passed out a document that's rather thick. I hope that doesn't scare you off. I'm not going to go through every number. I'm a numbers guy, so I like going through numbers, but I have a summary page as well, so hopefully we can spend time on the summary page, and if you have questions, feel free to ask. If you have questions after tonight and you want to get a hold of us, do so. We're happy to talk to you about our analysis at that time as well.
this is an action item. Are we supposed to take action tonight, or could we put it off for 2 weeks? How crucial is it to do action right away?
So the action that you would be taking tonight is just action to authorize a potential bond sale. The actual execution of that bond sale wouldn't be until early December, and
Correct.
have the option to change the amount during the interim period. So tonight, we would just be authorizing proceeding with the bond sale and a potential maximum amount for that sale.
Okay. Well, again, as the city manager indicated, we got involved in this process going through developer pro forma review. Once that was completed and through your negotiations with the developer, we've been asked to work through a couple of financing options. We did, as you'll see in this packet, look at 4 different options for this financing and quickly ruled out 2 of the options, and we have 2 incorporated into this document. So quickly, the 2 options that we reviewed that we are not pursuing, one is a revenue bond that would be tied to tax increment District Number 7 revenues. And while it's always nice to preserve borrowing capacity, and I know that's an issue that has been brought to our attention here, you do need to make sure that you have sufficient tax increment revenue in place to meet what's called a debt service coverage analysis. So you need essentially $1.25 of revenue, TIF revenue, for every dollar of obligation. And even without this project, the expense and the revenue, you don't meet those criteria. So the marketability of a revenue bond is greatly diminished. The second was to look at a possibility of bank financing. Local banks like to participate in local projects, and this would fall outside of kind of what the customary bank-type product would be. We're looking at an issue that is going to be 17 years. They're looking at typically 10 years or less. And then we also are proposing no principal payments for a number of years, and that's not a vehicle that most local banks want to get involved in as well. So we also remove that as an option. So in the packet, if you go to the first page in, we did look at two options, and we have a recommendation as to which we feel is the preferred option. One is a general obligation community development taxable bond issue. This is under the first page under proposed issue. And the second is a state trust fund loan. The state trust fund loan program is run by the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands. It's a loan program that we use pretty exclusively for TIF-related projects. So in this case, it's certainly a viable product that we looked at. And we do have in the analysis comparative between a general obligation debt issue and a state trust fund loan. I'll get to that analysis in a little bit. As was indicated, the purpose for this is a combination of the library block project. I understand the final development agreement isn't in place, but as you just heard, this is to authorize us to start the process of the financing. We would be back in December at your December 8th meeting with the final sale results. So we have a little bit of time before everything has to be wrapped up. And then it also includes expenditures for the Pioneer Ford acquisition and demolition projects. As indicated, this would be a 17-year issue. We would have a very favorable call feature, meaning we would look at an 8-year, maybe even a 7-year call. Call is a benefit, an early call, a benefit to the municipality, not so much to the investor, but it gives you flexibility if you ever look to prepay it, to refinance it at lower rates. It gives you that flexibility. If it's a state trust fund that you choose tonight, that is annually callable, meaning you could prepay it at any time without any type of penalty. Basis for recommendation, again, I kind of highlighted that we canceled out the two options of local bank financing along with the revenue bond just because it doesn't meet certain criteria. I'll have you know that our approach to issuing debt is that we really advocate strongly for competitive bond sales. And so if you do choose the general obligation option, what that means is we will send this information out to all potential bidders, including all the local financial institutions, and give them the ability to bid as well. So even while we ruled out the possibility of direct placement with a local bank, it still gives them the opportunity to bid on this competitively with everyone else. And we feel that's a real benefit to the community to have potential local presence in a debt issue. So if that's the option you choose, the local banks will still have an option to participate if they choose to, and then if they're sharpen their pencil enough to win the bid. Method of sale, I just touched on, that's the competitive bid process. On page 2, a couple of other considerations that we've talked about internally. That is utilizing something called the ability to term bond. Term means you're able to have the investor group up maturities. We think it provides great flexibility and leads to lower interest rates in a competitive environment. Review of existing debt. You do have a 2016 or a taxable NAN coming due in 2016 that we will be exploring greater with staff to see if it makes sense to include that as part of the issue. Nothing is pending, and we don't know if that makes sense, but it is taxable, and what we're looking to issue right now are taxable issues as well. Risk factors. This would be a general obligation debt, either if it's state trust fund or general obligation. Either would be. So the risk is that there isn't sufficient increment to make the payments. And so that is the abatement of the levy dollars with TID increment revenue is always a risk. A lot of what you have attached behind are all the cash flows for the different options that addresses that issue. And it also gets back to the recommendation that we'll be making as well. And then finally, under other service providers, we made the assumption as part of this sizing that Quarles and Brady, who we've used in the past as your bond attorney, will continue. If there is a change that you would like to see made, or if that service you want to see bid out, we can certainly execute that for you. Under the proposed debt issuance schedule, you can see we have kind of outlined the timing, and this gets to your question. The pre-sale, that's tonight. It gives us authorization, the resolutions, if they're adopted, gives us authorization to proceed and start the process of initiating the financing. There'll be a questionnaire that goes out to the city so we can start preparing the official statement. The official statement would be distributed sometime before Thanksgiving, would be our preferred. It doesn't have to be that early, but that's our preferred. And then the meeting to award the bond sale would be at your regular meeting on December 8th, with a closing estimated for December 29th. There was a desire to see the funds in-house prior to the end of the year, so we kind of work backwards and make sure that that occurred. The summary is on page 3, and I'm going to just take a minute or two to go through the summary. The summary, essentially, there's about 10 to 12 spreadsheets that are behind. And the reason I attach all those is they're essentially our working product. And it gives you a flavor for the level and depth of analysis that we go through to make these decisions on behalf of the city. So we've run scenarios for the state trust fund loans with and without revenue sharing potentially from TID 5. We've run scenarios for the general obligation debt option with and without the revenue sharing, and TID 7 standalone before the development and new expense. So that's all built behind this, and again, more than happy to share that with you if you want to take the time tonight, but wanted to make you aware that that's what's attached. So on page 3, quickly, we've tried to summarize our analysis. So, and this kind of sequentially goes with the spreadsheets as they're laid out behind this. So currently, TID number 7 has a negative cash flow, and without any revenue sharing from another district or development coming from somewhere within the boundaries of the district, will end up with a negative balance of about 1.3 million at the end of the district. Now, the good news is you have proposals out there, or a proposal out there that will change that picture. But we always like to start with a baseline. Here you are today, and build off of that. The proposed downtown library block project is estimated to have a taxable value of about $9 million. Again, that'll be ultimately outlined in the final development agreement, but the $9 million is what has been estimated by the end of 2016, of which $4 million will come back off as tax exempt in 2023. We have accounted for the Pioneer Ford expense as part of this debt issue, but we have not identified any potential new increment that could come from the redevelopment of that site and or land sale. So I'd like to think this is kind of worst case, because we're not counting on what could be a potential redevelopment and more revenue coming into the tax increment district. We did run a separate analysis for tax increment district number 5. We've shared that with staff, and they have verified that it's correct. And it looks to us that revenue from TID number 5 could be shared with TID number 7 by as early as 2019. And it's a substantial amount of money, upwards of about $3.7 million that could be shared with TID number 7 between 2019 and 2022. Now, not saying you're going to share that amount, but you have access to that amount of money if need be. If you don't, then it just allows you to close that district out earlier. So we have accounted for that as part of those cash flows that include the revenue sharing. The financing options, again, that we laid out were the state trust fund loan and the competitive general obligation bond issue. There's pros and cons with both. Pros for the state trust fund, low fees, callable annually, and we can structure it where there's no payment in 16 and no principal payment in 17. Beyond that, it becomes very difficult to structure beyond that within the confines of their program. We work with them a great deal and try to push that a little bit, but they have criteria they have for their loan program as well. So we don't have as much flexibility there. The cons, the principal needs to be paid in 2018. That's prior to the TID 5 revenue sharing being available in 2019. So you have this period, little period of time, a year or two, that you could have some gaps and shortfalls in tax increment District 7 revenue, even with the library block project coming online. Another con that we have identified is that the interest rates are a little bit higher than the market rate financing. So what we've estimated for a total principal and interest is a little over $3.7 million for that state trust fund loan program. Under the competitive geo bond sale program issue, the main pro is flexibility. We can structure the principal and interest payments as B, sell it that way on a competitive basis, and they'll be bid on that in that light. So the nice thing is we have the ability to delay principal until that 2019 payment, like the revenue coming in from TID 5, and so better matches up the revenues and expenses anticipated for TID number 7 when you include in the TID 5 revenue sharing. And then lower interest rates. The cons are higher fees. This is when you get involved in paying Quarles and Brady, folks like us, etc. And so that's you have higher fees included in that. And the bonds are not callable annually, but as I indicated earlier, about an 8-year call that you'll be locked in on a 17-year issue, though. So you still have quite a bit of flexibility. The estimated total principal and interest is about a little under $3.7 million. So it's a little bit cheaper than going to the state trust fund, but that's without it being structured. What we're recommending is that you look at the structured option where we delay principal until 2019 to better, again, match the revenues anticipated from TID 7 increment plus the TID 5 revenue sharing to meet your existing obligations and the obligation of this debt issue. What we're trying to avoid is having a situation where you actually have shortfalls that you have to come up with money to make up for. And try to match, again, the revenues and expenses. By delaying the principal a couple of years, what it does is it increases the overall cost of that issue to about $3.85 million. So it's a little bit costlier, but it gives you the flexibility that I think makes sense within the cash flow of TID number 7. So the good news here is with the use of sharing of TID 5 revenue starting in 2019, the development of the library block project, and the financing that we're talking about, that TID 7 will have enough increment to cash flow under both of these scenarios, that you'll be able to close the district out earlier than the maximum life of the district, even earlier than that potential 3-year extension on the back end of the district. So the TID 5 revenue sharing has a big part of that. So it's our recommendation at this time that the city consider a general obligation bond structured, which is that kind of second alternative of the GOs. And again, it's because we're able to better match the revenues and expenses of tax increment district number 7 when you take into account the revenue from TID 5. Again, this will eliminate shortfalls in 17 and 18 that you saw you'll see with the other programs. So that's a summary. Again, I'm more than happy to go through spreadsheets if you would like. And yes, sir.
I'm looking at STF loan, the second bullet.
What page are you on, Ken?
Page 3.
3, okay.
Is there something missing in that, it says interest rates slightly higher market rate financing. Is there something missing in that statement? Or,
No, the state trust fund loan rate, interest rates that they, for that program are slightly higher than if you went out and did a conventional market, so.
higher
I may,
than,
yep,
okay.
slightly higher, yeah.
Then is missing. Okay, didn't sound right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, or would you like me to go through and walk through the cash flows at all, or one of the cash flows to see how it looks? We've spent time, I know, going through this with staff. We've had a series of phone calls with staff to make sure that our numbers tied back to what they have, and we've run through several of these scenarios with them as well. So we feel pretty comfortable that it meets the criteria that they have set forth for this debt issue.
Now, it says there are 3 resolutions for the GO bond.
Correct.
So which one are we picking out?
Yep, the 3 resolutions all have to be acted upon for the one debt issue. And the reason being is what you're authorizing is a bond issue, which has a life of over 10 years. When you start talking about a debt issue over 10 years, you have specific statutes that have to be met as it pertains to what the project funds are going to be used for. So you'll see there's a specific reference to projects in tax increment district number 7. So that's the purpose. The second resolution is a notice to the electors. And again, anytime you do any type of bond issue, there's a notice to the electors that has to be filed. And then the third essentially is stating that you're giving us authorization to proceed with that financing. So purpose, notice to the electors, and then a debt issue authorization for the amount identified. So all 3 would have to be approved.
Okay.
And just for clarification, Ken asked this at the beginning, but is this something that we do have to actually take action on tonight in order to make it meet all of our schedule on time?
Well, again, what we ended up were tasked with is how do you get funds by the end of the year? There is a process. Remember, we have to go through a rating through this process, and you have bond attorney involved. So typically, from start to finish, it's about 60 days before funds are wired. So authorization is just that. We're not really, you're giving us authorization to start working with staff on the financing. If at your next meeting, you decide not to approve the development agreement, or there's a snag in it, we'll stop the process. There's no cost to the city at that point if we get a little way down the path. So we would, if you want the money by the end of the year, if you want to settle with funds by the end of the year, we would like to see it authorized to give us time to get through the process, with the understanding in 2 weeks when you have your meeting, and if it falls apart, we'll stop the process.
Okay. Thank you.
So Jan, do these resolutions have numbers? Are they 24, 25, and 26? 15, 24, 25, and 26? We approved resolution 1523 tonight, which is expanding the jurisdiction of the housing authority. So would these be 24, 25, and 26?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion, we authorize resolutions 1524, 1525, and 1526. One talking about the purpose, one talking is the notice to the electorate, and the other one is saying proceed.
Authorization.
Authorization.
And I'll
second
second.
that.
Oh, okay. I have a clarification though. Do we need to specify whether or not it's a structured or unstructured general obligation bond in this resolution?
I would, as long as you tell me which direction you would like to go. That's not within the resolution, you don't. Just give me direction as to which of the options.
Okay.
Is that necessary to put in the motion?
No, it's not.
All right, so,
I guess we can vote.
You just can vote.
all right, so we can vote on the motion.
Goss,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson,
Yes.
Den,
Yes,
Motion carries.
Do we want it to be structured or non-structured?
Again, our recommendation was structured because it again meets what we think are the criteria that were set forth, and that's to try to match revenues of the district with the expenses, and that will allow us the ability to do that.
And so if something happened I mean, can you move from one to the other? If it's structured, can you, and, you
Yeah.
know, something
Yep.
tremendous happened, you
Well,
could,
up
you
until-
could start to make a payment before or not?
The, well, I think what you would, and, you know, I don't know how you would want to handle it. If something, for instance, I'll just use it for instance, if the Pioneer Ford site redeveloped and you had a lot more revenue coming into the district.
Right.
My guess is what you would do is probably not share as much, initially as much revenue from TID 5.
Okay.
That would allow you to close that district out earlier before you would tinker with the debt payments.
But once we choose this, we're locked in then, though, right? The
You're locked
structure
in
versus
until a
non-structured,
call
yeah.
date, yes.
Until a call date.
Till the call date,
yeah.
And the
yeah.
first call
Yep.
date on this would be 8 years out.
8
Okay.
years, yeah.
So,
I think we should go with personally, I believe we should go with the recommendation of structured.
I would agree with the recommendation for structured. Anybody else have any
I would also.
comment on that?
structured.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. We'll go to information and discussion, and the first item is a resolution for a conditional use permit at 780 North Court. Joe?
Yeah, this is a request for conditional use permits for intensive home occupation. The applicant would like to do a massage therapy business at 780 North Court Street. The Plan Commission has reviewed it and recommends approval, and staff also recommends approval. So that will be on for action at your next meeting. Any questions?
Questions, anyone? Seeing none, resolution for the Transportation Investment Coalition. Karen?
Yes, this is an item that I brought forward from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. They're going to be undergoing a legislative push with respect to transportation funding, and they're asking all Wisconsin cities to adopt the attached model resolution with respect to finding a sustainable plan for funding transportation in the state of Wisconsin moving forward.
Questions?
Reasonable.
Seems like a good idea, yeah.
I think so too. C is a resolution appropriating the necessary funds for the operation and administration of the city of Platteville for the year 2016.
It's the resolution that we ask the council to approve next time, unless there's some changes along the way, but this is what we've come up with so far through the budget work sessions.
So we have the budget hearing next time, right?
The budget hearing will be next meeting, yes.
And then this would be the resolution that would be adopted or not after the budget hearing.
Right,
Okay.
correct.
December's,
No, this would be next meeting,
Oh,
right?
next meeting.
November?
Next meeting.
Right, so that they can get the tax statements ready in December, so we can all have our Christmas present.
there you go.
It's on the 24th? What's the date? 24th? 2 weeks?
Yes, 2 weeks, 24th.
Okay. I wanted to talk about something as far as the budget. Should I bring it up then? Or maybe I'll bring it up tonight because Paul Budden is here. I brought this up twice before. Today I called up the owner of the property at 225 Laura Street. As you recall, I've been trying to get Laura Street, the west end from Ellen over to the west, and also Ellen Street as part of the CIP for 2016. Now, the property at 225 Lower is a 4-bedroom duplex, 8 bedrooms in each, so it gives you an idea of the number of people affected. I was contacted by a citizen that lives nearby about this situation there. And as you recall, the section of Laura Street is gravel, It has considerable erosion, and it erodes onto the adjoining properties plus the property of the duplex. I asked the present owner if he had contacted the city. He said yes, he'd contacted the city, and that a former council member and the former city manager came out to look at the property. And the city manager at that time said that the owner had created his own problem as far as the erosion and what's taking place there. Now, when I look at that statement, it says to me that, well, why did the city ever approve the project if the project is going to have a problem and that the city is not going to readily solve the problem? And what I mean by solving is that if a project is put in, I think the project should be helped along as far as given the proper streets needed, the proper drainage needed, and that was not done. So that I disagree completely with this statement that the city told him, the city manager told him that time that he created the problem. The present owner, the owner of the property, plows the street, that section of Laura Street. And according to him, he says that the city crews are afraid to take their trucks down the street to plow that. So that's why, Paul Budden, you can answer that.
Actually,
It's on a slope, and in the springtime, that becomes very, very icy. I have a gravel driveway myself. It becomes very dangerous for 2-3 weeks, and I could see where the city would not want to go down that street. So the owner is plowing that property, that street, with his own Bobcat, taking care of the city street. The city is supplying sand and grit, gravel, whatever you want to call it, to help do the maintenance on the street. And I toured all the streets as far as the ones that are on the CIP list this year. I toured Furnace and Cedar Street that goes from Water to 2nd Street. And none of them have gravel. None of them are lacking curb and gutter, as the section of Lower Street is. So I'm again requesting that this project be done in 2016 instead of 2017. It is a high priority project as far as Lower Street. It, to me, it provides misery to the people that live there because it's difficult to get up that street. So these are my comments. Do you have any questions?
I don't have a question, Ken, but I will say just for public information that we've had 2 work sessions on the budget, and you certainly brought up this question at both
I'm bringing up more.
You brought it up at both budget sessions, and we thoroughly discussed it. And in, I believe it's 2017, Howard, I don't know if you have the CIP in front of you, but the street that you mentioned along with, I think it's Ellen Street, the plan would be to do both those streets at the same time, and that makes good
Correct.
sense in terms of planning to do that. So the
Well,
consensus
I-
of the council members
I
is
dis-
not to include this in 2016.
I disagree with you. I think it's something we can do in 2016. I think it's a matter of, I call it doing the worst first.
I did agree with you when you said that when we allow development, we should look at issues like that and plan for
Yeah.
them.
And this is something
But
that should
at
have
this
done,
point, the
should have been done
consensus-
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Should
at
not
this
have
point, the
come-
consensus of the council was not to move it to
It
2016.
should not have come to this issue, to this point. Should have been done.
Thank you for
And for
your,
a city manager to tell a developer that the developer created the problem, that is bogus.
I can't comment on anything that was said, I wasn't there, so. But
I-
thank
I-
you for bringing that up. Everybody is aware of your desire to have that added.
Well, I think it's a matter of being concerned about people.
I appreciate
I
your
think, I
concern.
think it shows a lack of concern if we don't do it.
I just want to point out to Ken, you're not talking about our current city manager, correct?
Oh, no, I'm talking about the former.
Just wanted to make sure everybody was
But-
aware that we're not putting her on the.
Were you on the
spot.
council when the developer came forward to plan this?
And the council?
I'm sure you were. When the developer
Well,
came forward with his
What
plan?
difference would that make? Because it didn't come to the council to approve the duplex. I assume it came to the staff to approve it and didn't come to the council. Is that correct, Joe?
I don't believe that went to the council at that time.
Joe and DPW would have approved that. So that, to me, if that's approved, then my opinion is that the city needs to step in and make sure that the development is properly serviced as far as streets and as far as snow plowing, and that's not being done.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anybody else have any comments on the budget?
This is not the last.
I understand, Ken, you'll probably bring it up at our next meeting. You have the right to do that. All right. Hearing nothing else on the resolution for the budget, we're gonna go on to the former Pioneer Ford property, the visioning process and timeline. We have information in our packet. Joe, you wanna highlight some of this for the public, please?
Yeah, the council has already given staff the go-ahead to work on the acquisition of the former Pioneer Ford properties. And when the council was discussing, the acquisition of the properties, he had kind of been discussed at least a little bit and understood that it was going to be a redevelopment site, is kind of the intent behind that. But there really wasn't a lot of discussion as far as exactly what that meant. What's the final outcome, I guess, that the city would like to see with those properties, and what's the process that we should follow to get to that point. So we started, talking about how we're going to accomplish that. So we just kind of outlined a potential, I guess, a timeline and a process that we are suggesting that could be followed. Essentially, what we're looking at is holding, we call it a visioning session, basically to get some input from a couple different groups of people, basically any groups of committees that have already have an involvement in the downtown, the Historic Preservation Commission, the Main Street Program, the Chamber of Commerce, Redevelopment Authority, et cetera, but also open it up to the general public who might have an interest. Go through a process to allow them to give us some direction as far as what they would like to see happen on that site. Without being too specific, we want to have the developer have the ability to do something that obviously is financially feasible and economically feasible for them to do, but at least provide some direction. We would then take that information, put it into a request for proposals document, send it out for developers, hopefully get some responses back that we would then have a subcommittee look at, screen them, review them, make a recommendation back to the council, and then from there make a selection for a developer that we could then work with on selling the property to them. So the kind of the tentative timeline, starting now, we could hopefully have that visioning session early December, send out the RFPs and also in early December, probably have them come back late February, do a review, and then have the council make a selection hopefully in late March, early April, and then from there work with that developer, whoever is selected, on the actual development agreement, refining the proposal, et cetera, and then proceed with the sale of the property to them. So that's kind of the timeline. We've kind of outlined at least who we think should be involved in the process, as I mentioned, and then some basic questions, I guess, that we would kind of throw to this group at this visioning session to get some input. So this is what we've got in mind. If you've got something other than that you'd like to see happen, or if you got any questions or suggestions, let us know. But this is kind of the process that we'd like to proceed with.
Just a comment, Joe. I hope that everybody who's involved with making recommendations, whether it be a group or individuals or whatever, keep one thing in mind, that under no circumstances do we want anything there that turns out to be partially or totally non-taxable entity. It all, whatever the project has to be all taxable. We don't need half of something being a non-taxable entity on this development. Thank you.
Joe, I had a couple questions. First one, do you envision that with the RFP, you'll end up with a point process, kind of like we did with the Kallenbach properties?
Yeah, I think with the proposal as we send it out, we'll have to give them some direction as far as what, you know, we're looking for, what's our priorities, and some kind of a ranking system or a criteria that we would use. That, you know, we would tell them that this is what we're going to use to evaluate the proposals as they come in.
So our expectations will be pretty clear at that point.
Right.
Yep, cool. Second question, I guess, or comment, is it looks like you have a really good list for the recommended people involved or groups involved. I almost wonder if PADIC might make a nice addition too. I know it's outside of their typical jurisdiction, but they've done so much with recruiting businesses and they know the business feel in town that they might be a good player at the table if they're willing to come.
Sure.
That's a good idea.
Joe, has a time been set on December 1
No,
for the visioning session?
no, I didn't, wanted to make sure that this was agreeable with the council before we,
So would you
get to any
envision this
specifics.
as a 4 o'clock, a 6 o'clock, multiple opportunities, or just a one-shot, come at 3 and say what you want? Or had you thought that far?
I assumed it would be one session, one meeting or one session. December 1st, for instance, we picked that would be well, that's actually a Tuesday, so it would be a, you know, evening meeting, so, however long it takes to go through the process, but, I didn't anticipate it going to more than one event. You know, we could provide, we talked a little bit about providing some other mechanism for people to provide comments after it.
Like a
if
Survey Monkey
a survey
thing,
or something on the website that if they're not able to attend and they still want to provide some input, we could give them that opportunity.
Because I sometimes feel that, like a one-shot deal, you know, like if you say it's at 4 o'clock and I don't get off work till 5, how do I participate?
Right.
Or if you say it's at 7 and I have little kids and I have to put them to bed, how do I participate? Or whatever, and so, as you think about it,
An online survey or something might be a nice addition.
Right.
Relatively simple staffing wise, but you could do a Survey Monkey and put it on the website or something.
so that if I can't come because of other obligations, whatever they might be, I still have an opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
Do council members have a suggestion as to a time? I was thinking maybe like 5 to 7. That might allow people to stop in after work, or if they want to go home first and come back at 6. I don't know if staff is looking for direction, or if you, if you want to come up with some plan too.
It wouldn't really be an open house, but it would be a structured event,
Sure.
so they'd have to commit to a certain block of time.
Seems like it would require probably 2 hours, doesn't it?
And I would suggest it not be over the dinner hour from 5 to 7.
7 to 9 might almost be easier for some people, I don't know.
Something to think about.
Did you meet on October 26th? Was there a meeting?
Yep,
You did?
sure, the RDA that was our regular meeting. And we reviewed this
RDA.
document at that point in time.
Yeah, the redevelopment authority met.
It's the
We're
redevelopment
not
authority.
part of
You
it.
have a document already?
This is the document we reviewed.
We took
Okay.
posed the same question to the RDA
That
to
RDA.
Okay.
give them some opportunity for input.
Was there any discussion about what we don't want on the site?
That was the discussion, the exact discussion we're having right now regarding this
What
process.
we don't want on the site?
That would be,
That's one of the questions, visiting questions, excuse me.
So
I don't particularly want to see housing.
today,
Housing and more parking needed and that.
Not even condos?
What?
Well, I think that those are the visioning questions, and the RDA did not address these visioning questions. We simply had looked at this timeline, looked at the types of questions, and said, yes, this seems sensible to us. Just like, I'm not prepared to answer these visioning questions tonight, and I mean, I think that a visioning process is not my idea, it's lots of ideas, and then you come to some kind of consensus.
When we had the meeting about the library block, we had a public meeting. Time of the day was that?
It was at night.
It was at night. 7 o'clock?
I wanna say 7.
That seemed to work pretty well. We had a pretty good turnout. So what do people think? 7? I think staff would like us to give them some direction.
I like 7, does give you a chance to get dinner and take a break after work before going to another meeting.
All right, so I think we have 7 o'clock on December 1st is what we are tentatively planning, and we'll have more
December
announcements
1st?
for the public, and hopefully some kind of online survey that you can answer questions that way as well. Any other council statements? Otherwise, we do have someone who's asked to speak on this topic.
Well, I wrote down here, whatever goes in there needs to complement the downtown. And complement is spelled with an E.
Okay?
Not be in opposition, but to complement what's going on downtown.
I think that would follow the redevelopment plan that was formed for the downtown area. Jeremy Johnson has asked to speak. So if you would come to the microphone, Jeremy, give your name and address, and limit yourself to 5 minutes, please.
My name is Jeremy Johnson. I live at 550 Western Avenue, right down the street from Eileen. Been a homeowner since 2001, I believe I bought it. On the Pioneer Block, I don't really have a comment on what the long-term use on it is. I'm more looking at ideas for a short-term use. I believe that one of the things that we need in Platteville is we need space, open space that we can use for sports or for kids and for children. We're going to end up with a building that's going to be sitting vacant probably over the winter that is going to be owned by the city. I'm wondering if there's a possibility that we could use that or correlate that with some of our clubs to use that space to keep it open. For instance, on the baseball, we have batting cages. It would be nice to put the batting cages up in the basement, and we could use that, and maybe the city could make a little revenue, or at least to keep the building open, because we're not certain what a new developer would come in and want. For the longest time with the change, the wrestling club, we worked really hard at finding a new space, and actually we just got into a new space into the basement of the old hospital there, and that just happened like basically last week, so that changed a little bit. But karate's looking for space, just athletics, something for people to go. You could have community involvement areas where you could do some athletics. Kids could have laser tag. I mean, there's just a multitude of things that we could use that space for through the winter months, with the expectation that that building is going to be razzed in the spring. And that's pretty much all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council?
Are you including also the round slope building?
What?
Are you just talking about Pioneer Ford?
Jeremy, I'm sorry, you're going to have to come back up to the microphone.
Well, I guess my feeling is that would be kind of part of the planning process or some of the visioning processes. How do we utilize the space throughout the winter? I have some ideas. I'm sure that if we went out and contacted the clubs out there, we could bring them together and say, what do we want to use? The senior citizens, I'm sure there's some areas there. There's always need for walking areas, and the upstairs of the Pioneer Ford building is quite large. I mean, that is a pretty large building. I don't believe that you could pay or afford to heat the old round top building. I think it's going to be pretty cost heavy, but that's something to investigate, I guess. I was more thinking the nicer building. It's a good location. It's downtown. It's where our kids can walk to. They can walk from schools right down there. I mean, it's a good area for our kids to have a place to go, just something to do.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. City of Platteville Community Sign, the second location.
Jody Richards, Communications Specialist for the city. I apologize for all the documents in the packet. It's been a while since I've recapped anyone, so here it is. So a little background, the city has budgeted $30,000 to fund the design, purchase, and installation of new welcome signs in 2015. This actually was something that was planned for 2014, but with the length of time that this has been taking, it's kind of been pushed along. So a committee has been created. The overall sign design was approved in November of 2014, and we actually do have one sign currently installed. Highway 80 on the Alliant Energy property is fully functioning. If you drive by at night, you definitely cannot miss it. So, yay. And I just kind of gave a recap of the cost, the actual costs that came in for this sign, so we can kind of budget a little bit better for the next sign. So are there any questions on any of the actual billing that has come in? No? Okay. So the committee has felt that a second ideal location would be the Walmart property on Business 151 on the right-hand side. I actually do have a photo of that. I don't know if you can see the red box there, but that's kind of the location. There's a little knoll on the side of the road. So that's kind of the proposed location. Actually, it's not kind of, that is the proposed location that is being presented. In the files, you'll see the lease agreement and all of the, again, the estimates according to the last sign that we did. So a little note, I guess, I mean, I'm definitely recommending you approve this sign. There are some things that I'm asking you to consider, again, as we are approaching winter. Ordering the materials and setting up everything is going to take at least 8 weeks, pushing us to December. So I guess what I'm asking you to consider is maybe we carry forward the remaining funds to 2016. There's definitely parts of the project that could be completed now, but essentially the masonry could not be done in the wintertime. So I just kind of want to give a breakdown of the numbers. The first sign came to $12,629 essentially. So remaining we have about $17,370. And the second sign is proposed to cost about $13,664. So another thing I want you to consider is the remaining funds, roughly $4,700, and that's with the addition of the grant from the Community Foundation of Southern Wisconsin. What we might want to do with that money as well. You know, do we want to invest in landscaping, or there are a few other signs that have been called to my attention that aren't very good looking around town. Let me show you one of those. Actually, it's not that it's not very good looking, it's just kind of dated. This is actually on Highway 81 before you get to Von Glahn Auto. I had never seen this sign before until the city manager brought it to my attention. I've probably driven by it 500,000 times. And then the second sign is kind of the current existing sign that we're looking to replace. There's been a little bit of negative feedback that this is kind of dated as well. So,
Well, it certainly is faded.
yeah.
I gotta admit too, though, that the previous sign, the blue one, is like so old that it's actually hip.
Yeah.
I think that that's pretty cool.
Retro.
that's the one with the thin man right there.
Yeah.
I would like, personally, I would like to see you do a third sign coming in on County D. And not that I have a particularly fond or like the other little blue and white signs, but I really, while this one may be retro,
Got character.
I would like to see a third sign coming in on County D that's lit, and perhaps on the other side of that driveway, because I believe that this particular sign, when snow is plowed, the snow piles up so you actually don't even see Platteville. You just see, because of the way this, you know, so the side of the driveway it's on actually,
Right. And this is on County D South, I would say.
yeah, it's
Kind of diagonal from Medical Associates.
Spike Karen Canyon's driveway.
I echo what Barb says, though, that with the extra money, it would be nice to have maybe like a 17 by 20 sign, a metal sign that can be put on other exits as well. That's designed that matches the ones you've just made.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I didn't put all of that into the staff note because I'm kind of more focused on getting the approval for the Walmart sign property or Walmart property sign, but definitely we're gonna need to address that. And you know, we don't have enough money for a third sign, but maybe we can start thinking about where that might come from. So
I'd like to take this opportunity to commend Jody for her diligence in this process. I know that she's been working on this particular lease for far longer and with more diligence. and
well
more
over a year,
perseverance.
definitely. I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into, but I definitely, it's been a learning experience, so
Well, let's just say it may be easier to work with local companies
definitely.
than with gigantic corporations.
Right.
But we all probably know that, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to echo the same thing because I can remember stopping in and talking to you and listening to the frustrations of dealing with a larger corporation.
Right.
And I have to say that the sign that is on Highway 80 now by Alliant Energy is very nice, and I did come into Platteville late last night, and it was lit up, and it's just a very, very nice sign. Very happy to have that there, so it would be very nice to have a second sign by Walmart. People coming in on that exit, which a lot of people use.
Yes.
I would also like to see one on County D.
Yes, I think so too.
Can we look at next year's budget for 2017 when we look at that?
We can look at that, and as Jody said, perhaps other
Might take that
funding
long.
sources.
Right. Any questions?
In discussion with the company, what is the longevity of the materials that are used?
You know, the materials themselves could last forever. What happens is it fades, and the way the sign is set up, you can take out the actual plastic pieces.
I went out and looked at the sign there, and it's, you have aluminum around the back, and what's in the front? I couldn't, sort of like a wood, no?
Right here,
The white one,
this is all,
or tan,
I believe it's all vinyl,
it's vinyl?
or it might all be aluminum. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look into that. I'm sorry. I believe it's vinyl.
You were saying that some of it's replaceable as it needed to be.
Yes, the
correct?
vinyl, yeah, and now that I'm talking about it in my head here, I believe it is all vinyl, and that will fade eventually. So when we picked the color scheme, we kind of picked colors that wouldn't fade all that easily. I would guess, and this is coming from Mike Lang, that this would last probably 10 years before you would need to replace the vinyl, and that just slides out and you can slide new pieces in.
My experience with vinyl, it doesn't last very long. Sun tends to deteriorate vinyl.
Other comments?
Other than there are some vinyls out there and new types of siding that'll last 30 years and not be bothered.
All right,
New technology.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the move to amend petition for direct legislation. We have information in our packet from our city attorney, so as we discuss this, if you have questions, he this year and can answer them. We have had 2 people who have asked to speak. So I think, well, actually, one person that is registering in favor, Marilyn Gottschalk, and the person who would like to speak in favor is Dick Rundle. So if you will come to the microphone, Dick, and speak about the move to amend petition for direct legislation.
Good evening. My name is Dick Rundle. I'm a resident of Platteville, and I live at 1270 Perry Drive. This item I'm going to be speaking to tonight is regarding the petitions we turned in to our city clerk, Jan Martin, on October 28th. 820 residents living in the city of Platteville have signed petitions in accordance with Section 9.2 of Wisconsin statutes, wanting the Platteville City Council to place a referendum on the ballot for the April 2016 election. It is a desire to have the city of Platteville go on record as supporting a U.S. constitutional amendment that says the following. 1, only human beings, not corporations, not unions, not nonprofits, or similar associations are endowed with constitutional rights. The second item is money is not speech, and therefore regulating political contributions and spending is not equivalent to limiting political speech. This is a part of a nationwide effort to reclaim democracy from the expansion of corporate personhood and the corrupting influence of unregulated political contributions and spending. Our local nonpartisan group, which collected these 820 certified signatures, is part of this nationwide Move to Amend project, where 16 states have already called on the federal government to call for a constitutional amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which would make our government once again, responsive to the needs of the citizens of this country and not to those who hold the financial upper hand. A minimum of 34 states are required to call for a constitutional convention. In Wisconsin, there are already 60 communities similar to ours that have passed a resolution that places these communities on record as supporting such an amendment. Our goal is to continue increasing the number of Wisconsin communities supporting an amendment so that we can convince our Wisconsin elected officials to also call for a constitutional convention. Locally, 3 other communities in southwest Wisconsin are joining us in placing a resolution on the ballot. Residents of Darlington, Belmont, Lancaster have also collected the required number of signatures to have a resolution placed on the ballot in their communities for the April 2016 election. Although corporations are not mentioned in the U.S. Constitution, over time, one Supreme Court decision gave birth to the fiction of corporate personhood, while another Supreme Court case created another fiction, making money equivalent to free speech. In another case, a provision of the McCain-Feingold law was overturned in 2010 in the Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission. This provision barred corporations and unions from paying for political ads independently of candidate campaigns. In overturning this provision, the Supreme Court declared that corporations, as persons, cannot have their speech limited by the government. This opened the floodgates, allowing big money contributions from the corporations to pour into the election process. Even well-meaning politicians are trapped by the current system. If their campaigns don't accept the huge amounts of money, it's difficult to get elected. If they do accept the money and get elected, there is an unspoken expectation that they will promote the legislation desired by the wealthy donors and not those of the general citizenry. As we collected signatures we informed our friends and neighbors that our purpose was to have a resolution placed on the ballot to offer them the opportunity to express their opinion on the use or the issue of excessive amounts of money that influence our political process. During our discussion, we found there was widespread frustration and a belief that there is little that will change the way our government works until the influence of billions of dollars is eliminated from our political process. A 2002 Associated Press poll found that 84% of Americans from across the political spectrum want limits on the amount of money that our corporations, unions, other organizations, and wealthy individuals can spend to influence our elections. We want our government to represent us, we, the people of the country. It seems clear that the only way we can gain control of our democracy is a constitutional amendment stating that only human beings have rights under the Constitution, and to eliminate the fiction that money is speech. This is our goal and the purpose of our efforts. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening.
Any questions from the council?
Yes, question. So you want this on the ballot as a referendum next spring? Okay, if it passes, where does it go from there?
I'm sorry?
If it passes.
Yes.
Where does it go from there?
There's going to be, at the end of the election, when it passes, there are letters that are going to be sent out to our state government officials, our local representative, our assembly person from our area, to our state senators, to our governor, and they will also be sent to, I believe, representatives in our federal government as well, including the president. The purpose being to let our elected officials know that our community and 3 other communities in this area have gone on record as saying, we want a constitutional amendment to correct all of this money that's going to find a way to fix the amount of money that's going into our election process and basically controlling what's going on in our government. So the effort is to let as many people know as is possible. And we're hoping that we can persuade our state representatives to eventually come around and say they are going to ask the federal government also. Wisconsin would go on record as supporting a call to amend the Constitution. So eventually we want Wisconsin to go on record as supporting a constitutional amendment as well.
But when you look at the last few months, the GAB, they want to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's looking at accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't hear the legislators talking much about reducing the amount of spending on campaigns.
Nope.
So that I'm just curious as what's going to happen here when it's sent forward.
Our hope is that right now, because of various Supreme Court cases, and there's some lengthy discussions we could have about those, but it has been accepted by some of these Supreme Court cases that corporations have rights similar to people. And also that therefore, if they have rights similar to people, they can then contribute to political campaigns. We want to end this, and we think the only way we can end this, and I think the only way there is to get money out of our political system, is to have an amendment to our Constitution that says only human beings have rights under the Constitution. Corporations are a legal entity and have the rights and privileges of a legal entity. They aren't protected under the Constitution. They aren't recognized as human beings. They aren't recognized as having the ability to contribute to political campaigns. Corporations, unions, all the other associations that are giving money to our politicians really should not be involved in that process. That should be a process that is restricted to us as citizens of this country. It's, as long as this money is flowing into politics, basically money is going to be controlling what happens in our country. So that's why we're making an effort to do this. It's persuading those people who have the power to make changes. And it's a long process. You have examples like the suffragette movement way back when women got the right to have the vote. It's also like the Civil Rights Amendment that allowed the equal representation for, not equal representation, but equality for the minorities and so forth. So it's the only way you're going to get control of this in our expectation or in our assessment is that money has to be taken out of the picture because our politicians are listening to those who give them the money.
Does that answer your question, Ken?
Well, yes, they're gonna keep on listening.
Pardon?
They're gonna keep on listening.
Well, I could keep on going, but I don't know if you guys want to keep on going.
I think,
Well, I'm just trying to
Okay,
get a grasp on, we get these referendums passed, now how's that gonna go and come out at the national level?
It's pressure.
I think you just tried to explain that.
It's pressure coming from us, the citizens of the community. If we can get enough communities in the state of Wisconsin, we already have 60. If we can keep getting various communities to go on record as saying, we want to amend our constitution, we're tired of all the money in politics, we want this to change. We want a constitutional amendment that is going to take corporations, unions, all the other people, all the other organizations contribute to our political process. We want them out of the picture. And we are going to have to keep going in Wisconsin because there's going to be a resistance to this effort. And it's because of people who already are benefiting from all the money in politics.
Okay.
Are-
I'm gonna let Barb ask a question
Go
too.
ahead.
Okay.
It's not a question of Dick, it's a
Okay.
question of Brian.
Okay.
Brian issued a memo about this petition. And do I understand, Brian, that your memo concludes by saying the city council has one of two options? We can either adopt the resolution ourselves, or we would authorize putting the resolution on the ballot. Is that what
You read the memo correctly.
Okay, so we
Um,
don't have to, I mean, it's not it's not required. I mean, we have the option of just adopting it for the city of Platteville, and then it would be it further resolved, the city clerk is directed to forward a copy of the resolution to our state and federal representatives with instructions to enact resolutions and legislation to advance this effort. So we could simply adopt this resolution that Dick has talked about.
Yes.
And not send it to referendum or to the
And-
public,
And if you did that, you would be complying with section 9.20.
okay? But then we would be in compliance. Our other option would be, another option would be to put it on the ballot and let people speak their mind about it. So then, at the end of this process I assume this would go on in April, then at the end of that election in April, we would,
Based on the results,
on the results, you would either forward this or not forward it or whatever.
correct?
Okay. So those are our two options.
And then Eileen, before the meeting, said, well, what about if the council decided that they wanted to adopt this resolution, next meeting? And if the council would then choose to submit it to the electorate. And then, I think that that's possible. I don't think then that the council's doing it under section 9.20, because they will have already adopted the resolution. But I do think that the council has discretion to submit matters to resolution on the basis of an advisory resolution.
So,
So you could do both in that sense, because the council has the discretion to put things on for resolution
right.
on a ballot.
But wouldn't it, I mean, it would kind of be, so the council adopts the resolution, it goes to the public and they say no, then what do we tell our
I'm not commenting on the
Yeah.
merits of
You're
it.
not commenting on the
I'm
merits.
merely mechanics.
Okay,
So what I'm kind of gathering from the group, that this is mostly about, as much as anything, this is about education, right? And having the people be educated about the issues and then have a voice. And so, I'm sorry, I have a cold. So I think then that putting it on the ballot is in keeping with the intent.
well,
But
I think, rather than me deciding what the intent is, that we should ask Dick.
That's what I was gonna
what
say.
what the preference of the move to amend the group is.
And
Do they prefer that the council just take action, or do they prefer that the council put it on a ballot?
And related is, if the intent is to put it on the ballot, what does this group intend to do to make sure people are educated so that when they see it on the ballot, they know what it is?
First of all, let me comment on what our preference is. I think you're going to get a better representation of what's behind this resolution if you put it on a ballot so that the city can vote on it. We can certainly get an impression from the City of Platteville Council if they choose to vote on it. We know that much. But I think if you really seriously would like to know how the City of Platteville feels about this issue of excessive amounts of money in politics, I think it should be on a referendum. And I think also that it's correct that this is truly an education process. We have handed out, and I think you may already have a copy of the handout that we gave to people that we talked to in the community, and that was our intent, is to educate people on this whole issue and to let people know that there is a nationwide effort to do something about that, and also make people aware that this is an issue that they can control and do something about. It's a persuasion process, it's an education process, and we prefer that route because I think that says this is what the community of Platteville feels. Resolutions in those 60 other communities that I talked about have passed resolutions like this by percentages going anywhere from about 60% to 87%. That says a lot more than what a town board or a city council says and feels about the issue. And so I think it puts Platteville clearly on a record of supporting this type of resolution if it goes to the public and if the citizens can vote on it. So that's our preference.
Second part of the question was, what is, if anything, is this group gonna do to educate people leading up until the ballot?
We are having a meeting about that shortly because if it's going to be an April election, we will probably, we're trying to get organized so that probably during the month of March, we will be having a campaign, educational campaign of various types, and we haven't figured out exactly how we're going to do that, but there will certainly be publicity in as many different types as we can get. In the past, we've had a interview on a radio, we've had articles in our local newspaper, we've had letters to the editor. There will probably be that and other types of information as well. And we may be doing possibly some door-to-door as well. In the process of going door-to-door, we have found very positive results in collecting signatures. Once people find out that this is about getting money out of politics, the excessive amounts that are going into it now, all you have to say is that, and they pretty much take the petition right out of your hand to sign it. It's recognized as a real issue, not only here, but in just about every community that this is taking place.
So just a suggestion for that is, if this does proceed down that road, it would be really interesting to partner with student organizations at UW Platteville if you haven't already, because that'd be a really good organization or group to target, I would think.
Yeah, we certainly, this is another point when you talk about students. We feel that we, the residents of Platteville, and many of us who are working on this campaign are in our senior years, and we understand what it's like to live at a time when there weren't these extraordinary amounts of money influencing how our government functions. And I think there's a lot of our younger generation who doesn't understand this, doesn't know that this is unusual. And so that's why we feel we want to work on this, and we need to do something about it. It's our responsibility. But you're right. I think the students need to be involved with this. We had one thought that perhaps by getting the residents of Platteville involved with this, we are getting a true picture of how our community feels about this issue. Students certainly are going to vote, and we would like to include them. We are kind of restricted in some ways from doing something like this on the campus because I think it's probably regarded as not a typical informational kind of thing you can do on campus. You can't go and set up tables everywhere. I think there's one spot on campus.
Actually, can outdoors anywhere you want to be, but that, I know we gotta wrap
Yeah, I
this
was
up
gonna say, in
here.
the interest of time, if you want more information, perhaps some somebody here can help you about the university.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I think Tom, do you have something?
I just have a question. Would we do this as a binding or non-binding resolution?
I think the state law covers that.
Brian?
The city would go on record as supporting this referendum as it's stated.
Referendum,
Yeah.
Can we do it as binding, or do we have to do it as unbinding?
I don't think binding or non-binding is a question that is
Yeah,
germane to this type of resolution.
right.
Okay.
Yep. This is direct legislation type of, if you want to call it, I don't know, it's a law, is what it is, direct legislation law. It's a way that the community can bring forth issues and direct our city governments to perform. In this case, it would be a choice of how we want to handle this issue in the city of Platteville. It would be either the choice, as I think Barb has mentioned, that it would be either placed on a ballot or the city could vote on it. Those are the two options, and that's basically it. This is legislation that's coming from the citizens in the community, is what it is.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Dick. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Doss?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Nall?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson?
Yes.
Den?
Yes.
Motion carries.